minus having any readers, like
thanks a lot, Jim.
Hello.
Before we actually have a reading, we're gonna like give, which I'll read my introduction later. We're going to give out some of these hot young Kafka awards. So we got a couple of hot young writers in here. Yeah. A lot of jealousy in our group now. Am I right?
Yeah.
A lot of jealousy. So a lot of people that are not winning and that didn't, their awards are like so old and nobody remembers. We're not going to give them anything.
They're boycotting this.
So they're boycotting. There's no subways. For some reason there's like no subways today, so you have to walk here from Manhattan. It's a little different. Some of these old stores.
Crawls here.
What?
We crawled over the bridge. Crawled. Yeah. Not walk.
The bridge is closed. Brooklyn Bridge is closed. D-train, all the thing right, but you can like get a cab, but it costs a lot of money. And the cab drivers, they won't come to this neighborhood, but they drive like within a mile here.
Great cab.
What do? They drive and then they push you out of the cab?
So let me read. Hold on. Forgot what I got.
Read Dalachinsky to show you how to work that mic.
Fortunately,
if anybody knows how to work a mic, it's Steve.
Anyway, I'm going to introduce this book a little later, but have you heard of the book called America? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So here's a passage in there, which refers us. So he's living with this guy. The guy comes in the door, and he tells the guy, his friend, his uncle, "Oh, I'm very tired." And the uncle goes, "You say you're tired? You have the whole street to walk around in like a horse, but I had to double through all these accursed passages and courtyards. It's a good thing that I'm a bit of a runner, too." In his pride, he gave Carl a mighty thump on the back. You know, Carl, a race with the police like this now and then is very good practice for us. That's kind of epitomizes. So that's how we chose these new young Kafkas. They're the ones who showed their ability to outrun the moral police and sense of America, which are getting so, obstreperous now out of control. One of those winners, before we ever read it, can we give them awards first?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Yay! All right.
One is known for his lack of compunction, his failure to initiate stupidities and his love for his darling cat. That's Jason Gallagher. There he is. So I'm just giving him a handwritten mini stick not say anything?
No, just shake your hand.
Okay.
Thanks.
Jeez. He's going to read later. What, you want to read?
No. You can stand on top of it.
Stand on this? Very good. Okay. Next up, then there's an author that's been around for many years, but without the recognition she deserves. She recently became a professional hypnotist. Is it true, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Professional hypnotist, and after hypnotizing Shalom, suddenly she receives an award.
I love her.
She's also one of the most reclusive writers on the scene. She's only out like 5 nights a week instead of the 7 that's kind of the rigor for the artistic scene.
She goes to Austria for months on end.
She goes to Austria for months on end because she, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so close to front. She doesn't know the
Travels with her cat.
She travels. She has a cat that lives in Austria, so she got to go feed it every. She gives him a big pile of food, but
And she's an expert on recycling.
she recycles also. So the cat's fur, all that fur. See her clothes? I'll say no more. The next winner, to the young Kafka of the year, Hillary Keel. From there, we go straight to the read. We're going to move around that. You said move this. Now, okay, can I be a little personal for a minute or not?
Yes, please.
Sure. Happen to brag? Can I start bragging brag a little bit or no?
Yeah,
It's not really brag. It's implicit. Anyway, how did anybody know who I wrote my dissertation on? What author?
Kafka.
No, American author of the 1890s and
1890s.
Lincoln.
who wrote a famous book about the Civil War.
Crane.
Stephen Crane. Yeah, that's a different people actually. Yeah. Stephen Crane was famous. This is a strange thing about Stephen Crane. When we get to Stephen Crane, he writes this book and it didn't become popular, and it became popular in England. Everybody's going like, this is the greatest, this is the greatest war story. This guy really got the inside story because he was a warrior. And people from the Civil War started saying, I was in the same unit as he was. But then he was actually in the Civil War, anybody knows?
No, he was not.
He just read a lot of newspapers about it.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing happened. There's another famous story. There's some book said this is the greatest book I've written about America, because this guy got the inside story. Nobody's ever seen America's soul penetrated into it with such perception. And what book was that?
Democracy by the Tocqueville?
No, not quite. But it turns out this author never actually set foot in America, or even knew anything. America by Kafka. He never even met an American in his whole life.
Right.
And yet,
That's true.
I'm going to read you
was.
I'm going to read you a little passage here. Where, you want to hear a little passage from America?
You already
Where he
did,
like
but-
lays out the current situation and practically like, okay.
I guess you're going to read something.
You don't want to hear it. You're here getting an award for Kafka. You don't even want to hear
I
it.
love Kafka.
Talk about like, okay. They're walking around the office, right?
What?
Uncle Jake and Carl emerged from the box. A messenger slipped into it and came out with the notes which the operator had just written. Through the hall, there was a perpetual tumult of people rushing hither and thither. Nobody said good day. Greetings were omitted. Each man fell into step behind anyone who was going the same way, keeping his eyes on the floor, over which he was set on advancing as quickly as he could, or giving a hurried glance at a word or figure here and there on the papers he held in his hand, which he fluttered with the wind of his progress. Is that like New York City or not?
Yeah.
It is.
When you ever try to put yourself into a book, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like imagine, so I kept imagining, what were they reading on those little
Very
papers? And I talked to the Unbearables because they're always carrying around papers in their hands. You ever notice that? And is Jason still going first or is he not going first?
Combs going first.
So
Yeah.
I was looking at these authors and I noticed they're always carrying things in their hands, so I tried to glance around. Now Ron, he had the proofs of a book in his hand. It's Welcome to the Barbecue, 100th edition. Ron Combs.
I'll read three relatively short poems. The first I'm going to trip on the court. Years ago, we did this thing, and actually, just recently, someone pointed out they were protesting the art museum in Boston for some reason.
For
Renoir.
Renoir.
For the Red Bar. And some friend said, Ron, you should get the people out and protest again, because years ago we actually picketed the New Yorker. We were decrying their shitty poetry. And I put the photograph up. You're in the photograph. I don't know if you saw it, but I tried to put everyone's name up there. But you say it is great poetry.
There's some very good poetry in there. You
No?
have Stanley Morse.
Okay,
that?
so I'm going to say
Well,
this.
you don't know that because you only see this level stuff, but they sometimes have very good poetry.
Sometimes.
They have Philip
Okay.
Levine,
Once.
Quiet Door. No, much more than
They
once.
had Isadora Duncan too?
No, they didn't have Isadora Duncan.
I didn't
Well,
know
anyways,
Shakespeare.
Anyway, during our protest, it was really kind of cool. Sparrow went up to the offices. We were like picketing back and forth outside, and he was writing poems as fast as he could, and he was chucking them over the counter. And actually, someone came up and they said, "What's going on?" or something like that. And Jim Feast, who's great, said, "You should actually tell the story." Jim said, "Do you know the password?" He said, "In every corporation, you have to know the password." And the guy looked at Jim like, "I don't know the password." It was really great. It was a good time. We did it twice. The second time we did it, it kind of got co-opted. Anyway, Sparrow had us take poems out of the New Yorker and turn them into everyday speech. So I took a 3-page Philip Levine poem, and this is what I came up with. It's his title, "The Summer They Killed the Spanish Poet." It's the end of summer. My mother avoids the windows of our suburban house. She opens her purse and checks the contents, looking for Kleenex amid the clutter of the blood or tears, because she's going to visit the gypsies, hoping they'll hook her up with her dead husband. She kisses me goodbye, taking one last look in her purse. I look too and am astonished to see a tiny tableau inside, a perfectly proportioned Garcia Lorca about to meet his end at the hands of a miniature firing squad. Though how a kid like myself knows this, I'll never tell. My mother shuts her purse and leaves. That's my Philip.
I like Philip.
He's one of my favorites. I like him too.
He's a funny guy. He's a nice guy. But
He's
he
the
went
dead
on and on
guy.
and on. I know, but I figured, you know,
Dead white guy.
I figured I could turn it into everything.
I got you.
Okay, so this is a poem that's coming out actually on Monday in Jeff Wright's magazine, Live Mag. There'll be a thing at the La Mama or whatever, and I'm so grateful to have a poem in there. I really am. It's called The New World. Digital God, watch over us, Ross the CPA, measure our daily progress with luminous T-squared. God is calling, protect us from thugs as we build and carry this terrible load. Yep, it's true, a new Tower of Babel, and I'm on board. A real worker bee, by golly, nails paired to the quick. No lashes for this lad, living in the shadow of the new Tower of Babel. Civilization, you bet.
Bravo.
And the last poem I'll read, this is from Old New York, from many years ago. I try to tell people whenever I'm in the East Village with them that every one of those little gardens was a building that burned down. They're nice little gardens, but they were at one time buildings. And I tried to write a poem about it. It's called Pipe Equals Life. She takes her shopping cart out to scrounge for scrap metal. Her kid screams. She slaps him behind the ear where no one will see. She drags her kid in her shopping cart down past the fires flickering inside trash cans, past the bums in her huddle, down to the blocks of gutted buildings. She measures the worth of copper pipe better than any plumber. Pipe equals life. Thank you. You'd actually see the people years ago, they'd have shopping carts, like buildings burned for 3 reasons, and I should go on.
What are they?
It was like landlords would actually, the taxes were higher than the buildings
So they
were
pay
worth.
arsonists to burn
To
the
burn
buildings
them.
down, like Pleasant did.
Right, or
Yeah.
junkies would fall asleep and the
That's
buildings
another
would burn
thing.
down. Or they'd literally just set the building on fire so they could scavenge the copper piping, and you'd see them with the shopping carts going down Essex Street, whatever, blah, 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 and selling metal. There you go.
Next author, I queried her what she was reading. She said she had a, this is a rarity, a signed copy of Saseki's I Am a Turnip. Meg Kaiser.
I'll just read one poem. It's called, yeah, sure.
Because we're videoing.
Filming it.
Oh, I
That's
see.
why, now we realize. She's filming you.
Oh.
You have to dance while you're reading.
Okay, this one is called Undercurrent. I break shells and make us sunny side up eggs. Smell of coffee and butter. I hum smiling. Solar eclipse outside my window. Darkness drips and paints the pane of glass black. I can't see out. I hear a fight next door. They're shouting. Something clatters, breaks on the floor. I shut the blinds. Stop, stop. I scream and cover my ears. Ate my eggs, drank my coffee, just as sand absorbs blood. This land is full and plenty, as sweet and cosmetic as frosting. The landscape, background, undercurrent. Say suicide, you say, and put down the newspaper. That's not true, it was a homicide, I replied. You throw my work on the desk, curse. Stop writing bullshit. Rocks, stones, pebbles, sand, dust. On the walls, in the streets. Graffiti. Everywhere I stroll, the sky is hazy, as opaque and slimy as egg and sperm. Thank you.
Read another poem.
You want to hear another one?
Yeah.
Not there, though.
On the state.
I am a turnip.
Rita, I'm a turnip, yeah.
Oh.
Or the equivalent.
Let's see.
I like Jill.
Or I guess I read something that I haven't read.
You haven't written?
That's a great idea. Great idea.
They should say I just wrote this on the way here.
That's what everybody. Well, I was
was in the bathroom.
Ron.
Ron, is that the first movement?
Go next. Go next.
Yeah, maybe.
She said she has to pay her
Okay.
after him.
Okay. Should I still?
No,
Summarize. Keep going. We're waiting.
All right.
This is part of your
Filming
speech
you
present.
listen through your phone.
Okay, I'll just read
Just read the one that's perfect for this moment.
Yes.
This one is called Relic. Before my feelings decay, let me love you one last time. Before my love becomes remains, let me hold and kiss your warm hand. I want to swim in your presence, where life was cool and dry and shade. I see pure water stream in your eyes. Its essence sees itself in my soul. We melt in each other's gaze. You feed me so I can live. I would consume completely and be consumed completely. Strength is lost and full in love, runs, weeps, and tries in life. We the blue, sliced by horizon, we the red, adrift on waves. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
I think that's in one of the talking heads, right or no?
Yeah.
It is? No. This next author famous author, I was looking what he had in his hand. You know what he was reading?
What?
Get Down Tomorrow, The Future of Disco.
That's
It's long. It's dressed for the occasion.
I love this guy. I love this guy. I just want to hug him and kiss him.
Shalom, who did the
Let's
cover
see
of that book?
Let's
Who
see
did
that.
the cover
Let's
of
see
that
that.
book?
Might be another part.
Ron
Might
Combe.
have
No, you did it.
some- Friendly one. Friendly one.
All right, so. God help us. After much deep thought and contemplation, Ron jokingly proposed the merger of Disney World and the Vatican. In his right mind, and toking on some weed, he figured that both the Holy See and the Mighty Mouse playground would be able to increase profit margins and collectively benefit from the marketing of their combined icons. His previous brainstorm had been an alliance between Kmart and the Satmar Hasidim in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This particular amalgamation seems logical in light of the yearly pilgrimages made by Satmar to upstate New York in search of clean air, green grass, and the ultimate religious shopping experience. Jim listens avidly as Ron unfolds his vision. Think of it, Jim! Jimmy, my boy, Michael Eisner and Pope John Paul. 7 dwarfs, archbishops, giving birth to the 21st century church doctrine while riding on a holy roller coaster. Jim picks up the thread and puts in his 2 cents. Can you just envision this, my fellow infidel? TV spots with Jesus preaching the gospel while aided and abetted by an irate Donald Duck? Ron ponders this and he stares at the ceiling, his eyes transfixed by the cockroach slowly climbing into the light fixture. Suddenly he jolts out his chair and heads straight for his jacket, in which he has a notebook and pen. He wants to give this all down. They both come down before they both come out of their stupor and forget it. He flips a small book open and hurriedly begins to scribble a list. A redesigned headpiece for the Pope and Mickey Mouse ears. Communion wafer stamped with Mickey's logo. Tinkerbell, fairy dust, church incense, and Madonna for the new millennium, the Virgin Mini. Ron chuckles to himself, thinking, poor Mickey won't be getting any anymore. Barbie solders over ice clinging against the side of her glass. Leave it to you, barflies, to be offensive, she shouts, intruding into the conversation. Don't you have any respect for other people's beliefs? Ron and Jim glance at each other, and their eyes brighten. Simultaneously, they exclaim, "We can't help ourselves. Shameless heathens that we are. Guide us, O fair maiden. Help us to help ourselves." Then they both laugh uproariously. "It's all the same, Babs," Ron says, his tone turning serious. "What is there to respect in all this nonsense? Don't you get it? Organized religion is organized business. One feeds off of the other, and both feed off of the masses. I can't respect that." Then he starts to laugh maniacally, completely throwing her off balance. "Help you guys? You guys are hopeless!" She squeals and runs off. "We're also helpless, so God help us," Jim shrieks as he and Ron crack up again, tears streaming down their faces. They can't remember the last time they laughed this hard. As for Barbie, she can still hear their laughter echoing in her ears hours later.
Change Donald Duck to Donald Trump.
Yeah. There you go. A different book
I don't know. That's why Shalom said discos are the only place you can really worship anymore. This next author, I found her. She was a little ashamed because I saw she had a copy of. She was sharing a copy of "Dude, Where's My Smurf?" A Childhood Among Modernists. Sora Litsky.
Thank you, Jim. Actually, I was delighted that you mentioned that's my favorite book. Why should I be ashamed of a childhood among the Smurfs? As long as I didn't spend a childhood among the Trumps. I'm going to read from my book, Cleaning the Duck, and I'm going to read a love poem because it's cocktail hour now. And now is the time to read this very transgressive, I can call it that, this is my work, this very transgressive love poem. Love is a virago rimbo. Love is a virago rimbo. A runaway train with a mind of its own. It speeds past my stop. Always takes me where I don't want to go. When the temperature goes up, it melts away. Like the angels I used to make in the snow. My love is too often imagined, absurd, absent, like a stuntman beside me in bed with a boner as big as a slide trombone. Love is my addiction, my sustaining affliction, a storm of pleasure and pain that makes me understand Rimbaud while you spent all your time hanging out with Verlaine. My love is radiant, like in radiation poisoning, rosy and rash like the measles, multicolored like a hallucinating kaleidoscope, sticky gummy, held together by tricky glue, Rimbaud. Like the opium you and Verlaine smoke with your friend Quincy. No matter how hard you pinch me, the dream of love is one from which I don't ever want to wake up. Even if love is virago, a buttercup filled with fool's gold is still dope, Rimbaud. It's still dope.
Best one.
Well, they're all the best ones.
Worst one.
The worst one. Okay, don't distract me any further. Here we go.
You're not standing there.
It's hard to get up on this thing. So
We'll help you up.
you don't have to help me up. I'll be right here. Thank you. Lament. You came to see me after 15 years, and I didn't have any coffee in the house or any beer. Where did that last roll of toilet paper go? How could the paper towels be gone also?
He's got a little envy for Alan because he's, you know,
Alan Cobb.
because Alan, he did a lot of books like The Outlaw Bible of American Poetry that you have a featured section in, you may remember. And so this next year he's working on his own copy of his own new anthology, Outlaw Bible of American Spud Carving. Arthur K.
Hey, Mr. Potato Head goes feet.
Yeah. On mistake, please. You had no trouble getting
You know, potato carving is a real art.
So where are your carvings? Why didn't you bring some?
Oh, you know, I got my, they help keep my hands full. No.
Well, you know, if you have hemorrhoids, they say you should put part of the potato up there.
Seriously,
Holy
that one.
shit.
No.
Our meetings are informative. It's being entertaining.
No, that's real. My grandmother told me that. And she would know. You know, she was a witch.
Last week I was riding up on Route 17 in Sullivan
Yeah, I
County.
know that.
I don't know if you've done it. When I was a kid, you drove up there, there were ads for the Brown Hotel with a huge, leering Jerry Lewis face. Now they have pictures of yeshiva bochers. And you donate to the hotel in English and Yiddish. But then they also have a ads for the Racino over at Monticello Racetrack. And I said, and I'm eating there, and I said, you know, they should have a sign that says time for tray. I'm serious, you know, it's like, you know,
Not everybody here knows what trafe is on. You better tell them.
Each of us here.
I don't know. But people are not Jewish. I don't know.
Well, you know, everybody, you got Google, right in your pocket.
Say it. Trafe means pork. It's not
Things that are not
Food
kosher.
is not kosher.
Right.
Food that's not kosher.
Okay.
Not a big
But
deal
up
to
there, if
say
it
it.
said time for trafe, it would certainly go over very well, I think. But okay, so there's a little story. It's called The Slice of Brisket, if you don't mind.
You were right.
Now, this is, when I was in high school, I had a job working as a guy standing outside a store on Orchard Street, making sure nobody stole sweaters off this rack, and making sure that I get customers to go in. And it was, you'd hear stories being told. This is the story that I heard. So this guy Schmaltzy owned a kosher deli under the L. Now Schmaltzy's deli was not what you call a classy place, but he made the best brisket in New York City. How good was Schmaltzy's brisket? It was good enough to die for. It was so good that Mr. Katz and Mr. Carnegie and Mr. Stage and Mrs. Second Avenue all tried to steal it. His brisket was so good, people came from Canarsie to eat it. They came from Riverdale for a slice. It was so good that the rabbi who inspected the deli to make sure it was kosher couldn't believe it was kosher. The brisket was good, I tell you. It was so good that if Moses came down to see how things were going and make a report, he'd stop in, have a slice, and forget everything else. It's so good they serve it in heaven. Nobody asks Schmaltzy for a lean piece. They take what he slices. When you come for the world's greatest corned beef sandwich, you don't get choosy. Now Schmaltzy himself, he was Mr. Nice Guy, if ever there was one. Always a toothpick, always a smile. And why not? When people come from 5 towns for a taste. But Schmaltzy, he had more ambition than just making the best brisket. He wanted to crown the king of brisket with a stuffed Derma that spoke to the ages. But it wasn't so easy to do. The best he'd ever had, the best I ever heard of, the most mouth-watering deliciousness of Derma, was from a place on Coney Island Avenue in Midwood. I hope there's nobody here from Midwood. And please, don't take it personal. But you aren't there now, you're here, right? And who would go to Midwood unless you had to? Midwood was like the prairies of Brooklyn, nowhere. And stuck in the middle of this nowhere, a little hole in the wall with sawdust on the floor and Kishka to kill for. It wasn't fair and Schmaltzy wanted it.
I like that.
Now my mother, may she rest in peace, was a cook from the old country. As it happened, she made the world's best noodle cook. Don't take my word for it. Ask anybody and they'll tell you just how good it was. How good was it? It was so good it had no right to be so good. People banged on the door Friday night, Erev Shabbos, asking for a piece fresh out of the oven. Now my mother could make flanken that came out moist and tender with gravy on the side. It was the crown jewels on a pile of noodles, though not as good as that kugel. But brisket she had, that Schmaltzy ruined brisket for everybody else. She'd stand outside Schmaltzy's waiting for him to come out. They'd argue about garlic, about peppercorns, aluminum or stainless steel. but always Schmaltzy won. He had the upper hand because his brisket was like manna from heaven, a gift from God himself to humanity. If the Jewish people had to give up the temple, spend almost 2,000 years in exile, suffer persecution, and the horrors of the Holocaust, they should at least have Schmaltzy's brisket. And then my mama's food, use the bird. Now my mama, she drove me crazy, but she made up for it at dinner with delights for the tongue. Her pierogi was so good that the Polish ambassador from Washington wanted to know how she made them well. It was special because it was spicy. It didn't matter whether she stuffed them with cheese or potato. She didn't do meat because she couldn't serve it with sour cream. You always wanted one more. It didn't matter that she got heartburn after. I may not miss those folks jonesing for a slice, the phone calls from Washington pleading for a hint as to how she did it, or my mama nagging me to get a better job, but I miss her kugel.
This guy's kind of a woodsman, you know, and you probably know him in there. So if you could happen to have in his hand while he's walking, racing down the floor, where's my antler? Connoisseur's Guide to Moose Watching. Craig Silver.
Well, I'm from Wisconsin. From the suburbs. I don't know if we hear mooses, geese. Thanks for having me. I'm going to read from, I just completed the zillionth draft of a novel. It's about a female singer-songwriter named Ariel, and here goes. This is chapter 2. It has a dreadnought body, a knockoff of a Martin D-28, the quickly-eyed CPA who was holding the garage sale a few houses down from a Flytiles suburban ranch, authoritatively told her between swigs from a sweating can of beer. It was a warm spring afternoon, Ariel recalled, and she would always remember the yellow body of the Cortez guitar as being wrapped in a gauzy golden haze when the man held it up. Although its finish was marred and dulled, the guitar glowed in the sunlight that slanted into that dark garage. The instrument was had for only $10, and on that day they became conjoined. It was a new limb, an alternate voice. She started using it right away for her new songwriting obsession. Of course, she played a stringed instrument of sorts before, starting when she was about 3, a sort of guitarless guitar, her bed, whose hidden metal springs made delicious slashing, snapping, kaboinging sounds, each quite distinct, depending on how hard she pressed on the mattress with her cheek or her hand. Runk, lisfundel, plunk, they became miniature meals for her ears, scrumptious bits of metallic sound candy. She played with them, among them, at night before falling asleep and in the morning before getting up. She must have spent 1,000 whimsical hours concocting a variety of intoxicating noise confections. She composed many concertos, despite the difficulty of coaxing the same tones twice from an instrument. She noted a plethora of noise burst possibilities. Mellow, muffled, mildish ones mingled with sharply insistent ones, and distant, chilly, outer space ones with giggly, silly sunshine ones. All so close by, they practically tickled her eardrums. One morning when Ariel was 5, her mother asked her why the bottom of her thumb was so red. Are you sucking it? No. Then her mom gave her a speech about not touching oneself. I'm not doing that, Ariel said, thinking she might start. Getting the Cortez revived the memory of that mattress in all its glories. Though she tried a little, she had no desire to play those things called chords, as the CPA had called them, or to pluck out familiar melodies. She mostly wanted to make strange, arbitrary noises and put strange, arbitrary words to them, and sing with strange, arbitrary fluctuations of her mouth and larynx. And here, miraculously, was her chance to continue just that, far into the future. She's signing a contract, a recording contract. She pressed down harder on the pen and it made a slight mark, but now it was her hand and spirit that refused to cooperate. She lifted the writing implement from the document. Something was wrong. Was she signing away her soul to the devil, literally, figuratively, whatever difference that made? How the hell did she manage to get into this office anyway, high up in a central casting in Manhattan's skyscraper? She glanced around the room with its dark wooden paneling, then at Sandra, the A&R woman, who was looking more and more exasperated. Ariel couldn't quite see how it was metaphysically, let alone logistically possible. With her looks and persona, she considered herself the human equivalent of antimatter, a black hole of star appeal, an avatar of the unglamorous. Maybe it was of questionable legality for her to sign the contract. They'd sue her for fraud, or after this, she signed, they'd twist her into something grotesque. And feeling grotesque was one of the things she'd been fleeing from for as long as she could remember. It had been a singularly crappy childhood, what with her father's up and down financial affairs and her mother's up and down love affairs. Her mom was what they called a homemaker and extremely bad at it, while her dad was a real estate broker and at best, mediocre at it. Maybe because they were older parents, they seemed scared stiff of childbearing. She never learned to ride a bike properly as a kid, or to swim, or to abuse her Barbies, because Barbie makes another appearance, right? Because they refused to buy her any. A big money pit, they insisted. She did manage to master Go Fish, but other card games or even board games were forbidden because Grandpa Sid had a gambling problem. And of course, she never ventured near a real fish pond because the outdoors were a big booby trap. One had to be wary of being indoors, too, where 90% of all accidents occurred and the furniture could get damaged. With outdoors out and indoors out, apparently the only safe habitat consisted of doors, yes, physical doors, except they were fraught with the peril of smashing your thumbs and fingers. Nevertheless, when she was still small, she somehow instinctively responded to the limitless off-limits of her world by climbing up onto the edges of doors, planting her feet on the knobs, gripping the sides or the top, and swinging wildly back and forth. One time the porch door pulled off and she landed smack on her backside, resulting in a big bruise and a parental whack on top of it. Bruises on bruises, and those were only the physical ones. She had a laugh at the sob story that was her early life. She did surprisingly well in school for someone the kids taunted as a weirdo because of her propensity to burst into what to them was pretentious prattle. Fasten your seatbelt, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Before the math test, she always aced. They didn't know from Betty Davis. So she often watched grown-up movies with her parents on TV, one of the few activities they shared. But she'd had a terrible time in math until she began thinking of the numbers in her textbook as copulating insects, coming together and breaking up, having babies, enjoying orgies, and doing it all again, but as negative entities, denying everything, being chased and getting caught and then executed. Numbers have become Barbie and Ken substitutes.
Men really had something for Barbie when we were young, am I right? You're almost disavowing it, but that's kind of, you know. Anyway, won't say more. But I've seen him, you know, he's got a Barbie in the back room there. The next author I came up to, guess what she had with her? This book is like it's a rarity, but it used to be very important in the 19th century. Hypnotize Your Fish. A new way to increase your pet's fertility. That's Hillary Keel.
Well, I'm not sure what to read because I've got something here in my phone, but I don't think I can manage this with the phone and the microphone.
Somebody can hold the mic.
I'll hold it.
Skype, some courteous person.
Thank you.
Chivalrous person.
Gee, thank you. I really like that. This is long too. Okay.
Take turns.
Okay. Okay. This I just will say that this is a prose poem or experimental prose. The setting is in Vienna, Austria. It's called Just. In the house, windowed and gardened, cactuses and the waxy leaf of rubber plant, branches far-reaching. House of staircases, 2, no 3. Staircases curved toward directions boxed and labyrinthine. Balconies contrast of larch, a deep red wood, a smell and texture. Door frames, brass handles, no longer, but still. Once. I painted arcs, semicircles, half ovals, one over another. I couldn't, unskilled and inept, but all the same, looking for mine, the place and shade, a tint of me, dipped brush into scarlet, stroke across, and on and over. I need this, a solution, a cure to mark my mark. Soon, hammering nails and hanging framed photos of our dead, haphazardly, at whim and wish, ungrounded, but this was my ground, and I would fix it with my heart. Our life, we had a refrigerator and insisted on art, my piano, a wine cellar. I made my library and hung curtains, went from room to room, painting walls, starting in mine, ending in yours. I was there, I was not, just a ghost hovering over your table, laid on your platter with knives and forks, lace cloth, old world. Or I put candles in holders, lit the place up like a Hanukkah night. I said, I didn't say, stuttered my R's and slurred my CH's. I listened to codes and curtsied before your acolytes with Easter baskets. Incense and the smoke from your Sprühkerzen, that was yours, while mine was popcorn and the hum of dishwasher. This was our bone and axe. You taught me to ski, put meat on me, hung me on your cross, like a teacher you'd once dreamt of, molded me after. I tried, I wouldn't without the snap and flood of storm. There I painted, the children having no part, hidden in rooms or up on the hill, at tram stop, a lesson. This me, Verlegenheit deine, peinlich, peinlich. I shivered. The water, the color, the brushes. I splattered and stroked. This was do, would do, joking. I pressed my eyes shut and wished. Arcs upon arcs, I adjusted shades, blended. I stopped and paused, wishing. I wished. Eyes shut, then opened. I continued from room to room, your room last. Were we married? Your room, separate staircase of oak by glassed Wintergarten, branches and beams. I admit, a confession, with a laugh, how we'd run off to woods, poems by Bachmann, a crown of birch leaves, or in Prague with passports for police, your princess in men's overcoat. We walked through Kafka's city, the iron moment of fog, the melancholy of Schubert, and winter approaching was no preparation. I thought, I didn't think, but promised, no, I'll never go back. Yes, just this you and wool sweater is enough. I thought your father's shirts. It gave me a world. He spoke of Hitler. He whispered and dreamed forgiveness. To see his life, mapped it out, brought me apples. You, the Maoist, the handsomest in Vienna, books on Marx and Lenin at the flea market. I admit there was fun. If I knew, I saw, but couldn't, though some warned, quite. But I couldn't buy. That I wouldn't, the thing to prepare me for this. A life, apart, my baby-booming American illusion, from rectory to college to Wohngemeinschaft, and then you. No amount of marijuana, Quaaludes, cocaine, and LSD could wash those smudged pews from me, the upstate New York and Philadelphia I'd only hoped. Then your village, the apples and snow, and there I was, mother, the day you slapped, newborn in my arms, pulled me to the ground, the terror of your night while our babies slept, and still I wasn't savvy. Night had been your worst, and the memory of infancy, to let cry or hold. But children do, and this frightened yours. Memories on wood, mine all erased. No, I have never smelled wood, I'd reassure, milk trickling from my breasts. But when you'd said there'd be no friends in this province, and my speech frightened the cows, the sheep, their peasants, your pull and shatter of love at night was when I'd begun to lay my head, said I'd slipped on icy steps, but it was your fever. Why does he push so hard? Why can't he sing or even hum? Give the boy some water after sleep? Show the girl some space? No, you'd bark, had gone livid from chickpeas and wanted soothing. But after morning would chisel its way through iced glass and glowed pink on the wall, and I loved. This is love, I think. Something my mother had never done upstate. I'd stayed and stayed in your house, kneaded dough, formed loaves, baked and smeared them with lard or jam, lit fires in ovens, all for the sight of pink light, your lashes, baby flesh. If only this, if only I paint these walls now, I thought. The kids smirked, praised, shrugged, shut their doors. You stepped in disbelief, in mockery. Look, a paintbrush in her hand, you thought. That was our dance, our time, just time. Though I kept, had sex, drank your whiskey and white wine and my masterpiece in your room, but nothing. A left-handed marriage, morganatic. A wall round you, the unspeakable candle in your corner. No simple bad luck, you, my ribcage, my flesh buried in your ground. You banished me in your dark, desolate, and I needed to know, and find the will to love, and then go. To be gone, I needed you behind, like my brother, long dead. No amount of warnings, no gypsy girl enchantment. Though at your corner I'd opened my palm to her, she said you had a car, a marrying love, but something, eyes flashed bad German, to protect, herbs wrapped in paper, dropped in my pocket, and even that. That I would pick your berries and watch your family, someone's milk and rural song. I tried to sing and get some reason in that. Your mother's sorry nodded off. Then 5 days after, a black scarf wrapped around his jaw. Spoke to him the very day. Even before you had your ennui and being an orphan made you chirp. It brought insufferable freedom to you alone, but catching wind, I put my finger on and wouldn't let up. Though you scratched for years, I tangled, untangled, dangled, and scrambled my way out. Now, Viennese Cafe in the East Village, and your electronic message of change, new houses, diminishing funds, the old walls now painted over, and a red heart appears to tell me you are scot-free. East Village sleep sees me barefoot in snow. There somewhere, I'm left out, can't go, but I look. Snow turns soft, warm, smooth. Sand on beach oozes through my toes.
You guys got a minute? No. Just so happen I'm looking through our Unbearables. I could have my piece here. You got a meditation? Short piece?
Yes.
Sick. She can wait or she can't.
She wants to hear the world famous Jim Fees.
This is a little piece from our introduction to the, which is at the end, to the Unbearable anthology. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
The introduction.
The whole thing. Read the whole thing.
That's what we do now.
Just read the whole of
Read the whole thing.
The whole beginning of it, okay. In 46, as the U.S. demobilized from World War II, a number of the recently paroled detainees were out on the street looking for work. Among them were Man Mountain McBrain of Wobbly, Yoko Snapple, interior decorator, Carmen Asturias, migrant worker, Tess Ventricle, unlicensed veterinarian, Hakim Bey, medievalist, and Rollo Whitehead, car thief.
That's funny.
Due to overcrowding and bureaucratic snafus, the 6 who should have been in separate law enforcement facilities, Yoko should have been in the Japanese internment camp, were all kept in the same cell for 2 years. They developed a rough and ready respect, if not tolerance, for each other. Judging from each one's profession, none had lucrative employment prospects. And in truth, most of them were Bohemian radicals first and workers second. There's one thing that stressed them out as they looked for work was, how are you going to support yourself? During the 40s, they had become dissatisfied with capitalism. From what little they had gleaned in Alcatraz from letters and radio broadcasts, the country was in for a period of counter-terror where the state would endeavor to roll back gains in racial equality and workers' rights earned in the war plants of LA and Chicago. As they sat talking in a dingy bar in the Mission District, they wondered whether they'd be able to find backwaters where unrepentant leftists like themselves could still fire a few shots while making a living. I exclude from this discussion, Hakim said, any phalansteries where young rebels attempt to institute new social relationships in a commune setting. Now, what's wrong with those? Carmen said. They could be set up in abandoned Pueblo Indian cliff houses. Hakim was adamant. In real life, those communes ended up serving the machine. They became wildlife refugees for zoot-suited Dadaists. Where all the beard-guzzled hairs split, the sperm ejaculated, vaginal fluid squirted, was nothing but oil that helped spin the wheels of the imperial state. Well, what hope can you offer if you can't find a crawl space in this whole rotting carcass of America? Tess asked. How contemporaries? I'm not saying it's impossible. If you get kind of a temporary roll of butted in, I dare to differ. We'll find a place by studying the growth areas of the economy. What? Said Man Mountain. Whitehead squirreled up in a corner, rolling a cigarillo. The striped shadows were cast by the paper lanterns over the bar, made him look like a rayfish zebra.
A rayfish zebra?
He went on. Capitalism is consumes its own innards. It's always destroying things. When a technological breakthrough emerges, as when an auto was invented, there were obsolete jobs such as horseshoeing were thrown on the slag heap. Around such sea changes, there is a penumbra of livability before the old method goes out and the new method comes in, where cranks, windbags, tramps, and scamps like ourselves can find not just a refuge, but a place where we can flourish. And Carmen said, and we can vibrate the culture. Tess was enthusiastic. Yes, let's find that place. This will be our group self-help project. Old self-help books told you how to work really, really hard, make good influence friends, and make money. But our goal is this. Find a place where you can get a job and you can goof off all day long. Yoko had once appeared in a rodeo. She jumped up. Yippee-ki-yay. You gotta ride a wrecking ball. This next author, he was trying to hide this in his pocket. Do you happen to have a copy of Heidegger and Rod McEwen? What's the real connection? Jason Gallagher.
So Jim told me that we were supposed to have some political poems tonight.
I did one?
Yes, I know you did, Jim. Thank you. So I have two. One is sort of hot off the presses, and one I've been trying to get published for a little while. Just want to let you know that I'm spending a lot of time doing some swim lessons in Red Hook over the summer, and that's where the first one of these comes from. It's called Two Authors Other Than Alexander Wilcott. I know that kid sitting at the other computer, at the Red Hook Library, on the corner of Dwight and Wilcott. Not because I've seen him before, but in spite of his much darker skin, because he is me. As we both sit in the 90-degree heat with only industrial fans to cool us, I notice we are both wearing blue polo shirts. Am I wearing one with the same logo as his today? I can't remember. I notice he's living in, I noticed he's living in his own little 12-year-old world. He's doing something on the computer, playing a video game, I think. I can make that guess because without seeing his screen, every couple of seconds he flaps his arms in excitement. I did the same thing about 15 years ago. Shit, I still do. Only now, it takes a little more than a video game like the one he is playing to get me that excited. I suppose I don't flap anymore because I've had too much excitement in my life. Or maybe because I have become jaded, or because places like Red Hook have made me cynical, for two reasons: hurricanes and public housing. I've lost some of my motivation for joy, ruled as I am by the psychopharmaceutical industry, and days like today, when I can finish a poem, I don't know if my corporate medical overlords are hurting or helping me. However, my medicines have made me spontaneous enough to write all these thoughts down. My medicines sure have made my life much more manageable, yet did these medications take all the spontaneous joy out of Caucasian Jason's response to whatever African-American Jason is flapping about? I'll never know. All I know is that I can give this short verse to a boy that was once 12-year-old me. If he lives in the public housing across the street, how is that so much different from the trailer I grew up in? How is your use of the free library technology so different from my own need for those same types of learning services at my own public library my mother was so beholden to? In spite of his learning disability and his economic disability, good things will happen for this boy. Good things did eventually happen for me. Good things happened to me that I couldn't even imagine. I mean, they can't get worse than a future hurricane. And who wants to ruin the perfect moment of excitement with talk of the future or acts of God? Enjoy the present, my friend. I enjoy the present as I enjoy the 20 minutes I have to wait until this library closes. In due time, young man, your mom or dad or brother or cousin or someone else will come to walk you home. It was just another day you didn't get yourself in trouble. Another day to dream.
All right.
Thank you. This is like footnote. I'm footnoting my poem here. So there's a town in western Nebraska that's about 80% Mexican American. It goes by the extremely racist name of Mexington, Nebraska. I did not put that into the poem, but it is my little footnote for the last line here. The poem is called Hit the Bricks, Cinco de Mayo. Let's begin by saying two things. One, I am in no way someone with the authority to write in the voice of the Mexican-American masses. And two, Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. It is in no way a grand celebration of the birth of a great nation. No, Cinco de Mayo is more like Veterans Day, only back when Veterans Day was Armistice Day and everyone in America knew what war we were celebrating the end of. In the case of Cinco de Mayo, it is the celebration of the Mexican victory over the French at the Battle of Pueblo in 1862. Sometimes it appears that Cinco de Mayo has become the Mexican equivalent of an 1820 St. Patrick's Day, a day for racists, alcoholics, or alcoholic racists. This proclamation might seem a little harsh if it wasn't for the fact that one can purchase several versions of something known as the sexy taco costume. There are obviously some non-Mexican Americans, this poet for example, who know a little something about the history of what happened south of our border. People who know about years of racism, who know about the arbitrary nature of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, who know that about 90% of 19th century Mexicans were steamrolled by just the flick of a quill. Supposedly, they gladly became U.S. citizens. How Mexicans of the 1840s must have felt or could feel about their grandchildren 3 generations removed becoming chafed under the bullshit label of U.S. citizenship and having to be called illegals while at the same time calling themselves Chicanos or Chicanas, started a movement with other oppressed peoples in the 1960s. Now, to make a generalization, all there is left of our Mexican friends are the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots, they pushed their churro carts trying to make a living from Lexington, Nebraska to Lexington Avenue, but I can't say much more.
As I say in my review of Alan Kaufman's book, anybody happen to see it? We have the have-nots and the have-too-muches now. That's what we got here.
There you go.
Jason is sick, so he's got to leave.
Jason is not sick.
So
Jason's
somebody's
wife
sick.
is sick.
Okay, his wife is sick. Half is sick. Half sick. That's better. Lastly, this author is where is she? She happened to have a copy with her of a History of Bandy Leg Pills. That's none other than Anna Montgomery.
I
hope I have the right title.
The bandy-legged people. They are all members of the League of Red-Headed Men.
And they're Ubearables.
Hey, I'm the final reader? Really?
Yeah.
Well then, cool. Thank you, Shalom. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Val.
Thank you. The whole thing was set up for you to be final reader.
Right. Okay. So, can you guys hear me? Do I need the mic? Do I need the mic?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm recording it into this machine up here.
Okay, I long to be
It looks
immortal.
good.
So this is from my most recent novel called The Fort. This is a freestanding passage in which the hero, James McMullen, reflects. He's reflecting now. When James met his ex-wife, what drew him to her immediately was how firmly she was ensconced in her tribe. The O'Connells finished each other's sentences. They punchlined each other's jokes. They capped each other's puns. They helped each other and called each other on their bullshit. They were a real family, the kind he'd imagined when he was a kid. And he asked his mother, where did he come from? And she told him the gypsies brought him in. Nope. And he went outside straight away to stand by the road and wait for them to come back. And wait for them. He waited for them in every free 5 minutes for years, for their red caravans to round the corner, their flashing women in long mirror sequin skirts, their long black hair dusty from travel and they not minding, their white horses curvetting from high spirits, men, women, children, dogs, kittens piled against each other, a heap of trusting flesh, their eyes half closed with sleep or passion or something else, a few men with long mustaches perched somewise on and above the caravan, playing gypsy music on their guitars, their clarinets, their drums tucked between elbow and hip, for them to see him and recognize him, and in the moment of recognition extend their hands, smiling, for him to grasp and swing up into the caravan in one smooth, easy motion, nestled into the heap of gypsies who smelled of wood smoke and horseflesh and spice, watching the house on Undine Street slip away as the gypsies headed for the sand dunes and jack pines of West Albany, back before that poor farming land was covered with strip malls, back when the house on Undine Street was on the edge of town, back when that house was a place where James and his 2 brothers were random targets for their father's blows and curses, ducks in a shooting gallery, back when their father sat in his brown armchair with its ashtray on one arm, drinking Jamesons from a tumbler, his eruptions unpredictable, their mother crouched in the kitchen weeping as their father slapped and yanked, struck and threw, as vile contempt flowed like a lava down his slopes as he knocked a little sense into them. That was family life for James, year after year, the child years that never end. That was the family life that drove him to the curb for years, waiting for the gypsies to come back for him. For years after he knew they wouldn't come back for him. For years after he knew they had never left him with this family. In the first place, for years, he stood at the curb, looking up the street, hopelessly hoping. Thank you.
We're going to ask Hillary and Jason to come on the stage for a minute, and then if they don't mind.
I mind.
Mouth rostrum.
Do I have to do that?
This is the gift. No, this is part of the ceremony. You got to do
Oh, we have to do the
magic of Ubearables salute.
We gotta do the thing.
Do the salute.
I don't remember the salute.
Put your hands together. From somewhere. Everybody else in the audience is doing the same thing. Coincidentally, from somewhere to nowhere.
Somewhere to the
Something to nothing.
We still have some chips here. If you want to eat something.
Food is good.
Food is good. Food is good.
Thanks. Food is a good thing generally.
Yes. Yes. Drinks, a little bit of beer, water, wine, whatever.
I was trying to get major interaction. My brother, he's like an editor of
Alright,
the magazine. He got
Good work, Shalom.
Good work.
Yeah.